My guest today is a new friend of mine that I'm excited to bring to you all the way from the Chi. Y'all know I got a love for Chicago because that's very close to my hometown, Gary, Indiana. But she is here. Her name is Stacia Mack, mother of Polo G. Welcome to the Raising a Rapper podcast, Stacia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Welcome to my home and my city and all those great things. I am so glad that you are here. Let's just get right on into it. This awesome career that you guys have had and everything that you guys are doing. Let's just tell everybody, what role do you play in Polo G's career? Like, what exactly do you do for him? We know you're his mom, but what exactly do you do?
Everything.
Okay.
So my tasks are branding, market, executive producing his records, creatively designing his sets for tour, his video shoots, everything. Everything that's Polo G from merchandise on down, I have a final say, and I'm like a one-stop shop, everything that relates to him.
And you do all this by yourself?
I do.
Okay.
And occasionally I bounce off my associate, Steve-O, who is amazing, and I'm really thankful to have him.
To help you. You know, a lot of parents on that note come to me and say, should I manage my child? Should I hire someone? My take on it, because that's just not my area. Now, if I had to do it, I would. It was just fortunate that we got in business with Coach and P, and those were his managers, and I came from corporate and didn't really know what I was doing. What has this experience been for you, being a female, a Black woman in the industry? What has it been like? Do you see some differences, some racism, some classisms? Do you see a lot of that when you're out there making these decisions for him with record labels and brands and things like that?
Well, absolutely. It's not without its challenges, and especially we see that we've made so many strides in seeing women being able to do the things that they're doing. You know, from me managing to you having this phenomenal podcast, this great book. So we've made great strides, but there's so much more that we have to go. Sometimes where I can have a conversation or I can make an executive decision, sometimes is second guess, are you sure? And it comes from a point where, is she leading with her emotions because she's a mother, or she's leading with her intellect as a manager? Exactly. So those are things that, and hurdles that I've had to overcome, but successfully so. Okay. And you know, I'm glad to be inside of the Sony house, because it's made that transition of being a momager that much more smooth, because it's a great support system as it relates to molding and shaping his career.
Now, how long have you guys been doing this?
Surprisingly, it would seem like a long time, but not even 2 years.
Not even 2 years.
It has not been, and he's had such great success early on. And we actually closed the deal October 2018. I'll never forget. So, you know, just shy of 2 years. Yeah.
So that takes this. Let's go back. So tell me how you guys got started. So tell me, how did you know all along you had a star in your hands? Did you know he was going to be this amazing rapper? Did he just come out this bag? I want to be a rapper. Where did all this talent come from? How did you guys get started?
So I've always known that my children will be successful, and they were God's gift to my womb, and just to be successful and to be legendary. And I always told them that they were legendary, and I started a brand, I Birth Legends, because I spoke that thing into existence over all of my children, all 4 of them. Okay. So when my son, he said, at his prom send-off, nonetheless. So I had this elaborate prom send-off for him, and he had 2 wardrobe changes. He got the violins playing. I rented out this whole school. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing, because I was so proud of him because of all of the strides that he took. And all of the deck was totally stacked against him as being a young man in the inner city in Chicago, nonetheless. And so to celebrate something that was so positive, I wanted to go all out. And on that day, I just remember him looking at me and saying, like, you know, she's so happy. Maybe I should drop the bomb now. I'm not going to college. So, yeah. So I'm like, okay, so what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to be a rapper. So I had some associates that were there at the time, and they're like, girl, you gonna let him be a rapper, this, that, and the other? Everybody wants to be a rapper. I said, and everybody is not my son. He's gonna do it, and we're gonna make sure that he does it successfully.
So you were supported from day one?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. When I say anything that my children say that they want to do, my 7-year-old is saying that she wants to be a makeup artist. I bought makeup sets. If that's what you want to do, I'm going to cultivate it from the beginning.
Right. Very good. Very good. Because that wasn't my attitude at all. I was like, you're going to be a what? And how you going to make money doing that? Because I had never witnessed him rap or perform or any of that. So for me, it was so far-fetched. Yeah. You know, he was like, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be famous. I'm like, okay, so how you going to do that? So not that from the gate, I was like, I'm not supporting that. You can't do that. I was just kind of a little confused. But again, me also being from the Midwest, when I came from the Midwest, which I'm much older than you, but when I came from Gary, Indiana, you had 3 options. One, you go to college, you go to the steel mill, or you go to the military.
Absolutely.
I wasn't interested in any of those. I knew I needed to go to college in order to be able to get a good job. What I felt like was a good job, other than post office, UPS, FedEx. No disrespect to them, because I love them to death, but I wanted to be a little bit more, something more in corporate America. So in order to do that, in order to compete, I had to have a college education.
Absolutely.
So I went on to college. So I started to raise him the only way that I knew how to raise him. College, get a job, get married, because that's what I knew. So he had to kind of take my hand and be like, look, let me show you something different. But basically, I knew either I get on board or I get left off, because he's going to do it anyway.
Absolutely.
So it's best to be present and give him that, exactly, that motherly and business advice that he was going to need, or else he was going to make a bunch of mistakes.
Because early on he was always a poet, so it wasn't far-fetched.
Okay.
You know? And then we come from a very artistic family. My ex-husband, their dad, he writes and all of that good stuff. My daughter, she writes. So we come from a really artistic family, you know. So when he said it, it wasn't, I wanted him to be a state's attorney, and I wanted him to be a black man inside of the judicial system to assist, and that's what I wanted him to be. And he had other plans, and God did too, because I told him, I said, well, you have a year, and you better make it within a year. And in less than a year, it was probably 3 months, there was a bidding war for him, as far as because him alone, nowadays record labels don't really build acts and build brands. You have to come already ready, and that's alone he had millions of views, you know. And I remember I give him little champagne for each one, and I come in and I'm like, you hit 1 million. He's like, Mom, how many times are you going to do that? Because I'm going to get the million. So it was funny, but he's just been really, really successful in it. And when he started, I was very apprehensive. You don't hear great things about the music industry. You're only as good as your last hit, which means that it's very fleeting. And I wanted him to do something that was impactful. And when I realized that his road was impactful, that he, with his music and his voice, touched so many in so many different ways, I had to support him 110%, because even though he was a young adult, he was still my child, and he's my adult child at this point. And I knew that if he needed me to grow inside of that way, that I couldn't just step out in the business sense. I had to be there in every aspect. Right.
That's amazing. So now tell me, which really concerns me, like growing up, we all know the story. We know what's going on in Chicago today. We know about the crime. How, as a mother, what did you do to kind of keep and instill in him, listen, we got to try to stay away from the streets as much as possible. You know, things do happen. But what were some of the things that you did to try to make sure that he stayed interested in furthering his education or doing something positive? Because we have gangs everywhere. We know they exist in Chicago. What did you do to help catapult that, I guess I should say?
It wasn't easy because...
and what were some of your challenges?
Yes, it wasn't easy because most artists have such a beautiful mind, and they walk to the tune of their own.
Their own creativeness.
So it was many times me protecting him from himself. The streets didn't influence him. It was him trying to see, well, let me check this out and see what's going on over there. He wasn't easily swayed by anyone. It was his wonderment that would have him inside of weird situations. And in those instances, I would use things that I've went through, things his father has, his past family members who were dead and in jail for making poor decisions. And I would let him know that sometimes you don't have to go through trials and tribulations. You could see and learn from someone else's mistake without having it happen in real time. And when that didn't work, he had a stint where he was actually incarcerated. And it was one of the lowest points inside of my life because I felt just so horrible because I knew that he was so much better. He was raised so much better.
Exactly.
And I just felt that it was just such a bad time for him to have thought after graduating and being on a road to such success and even having such successful strides with music, like you could be anywhere, but you're here because of poor decisions. And we had a really heartfelt conversation. And when we had that conversation, I had to let him know that your decisions adversely impact us if they're not wise.
Right.
And when you do this bid, you don't do it alone because you have a family. You had a family before and you'll have a family when you come home. So we're going through this with you.
Exactly.
And when he saw the gravity of that situation and he saw that he has a younger brother and now he's looking at you like, is this the example that you want to leave for me, my daughters? He realized then that I can't, and I'm going to stop and stifle my growth, my family's growth, if I continue to move on in this path. And he just got it together. He got out, and to God be the glory, he's never gone back, and he just got it. Sometimes you have an epiphany. He bumped his head, and after that, it was like he was done because
like
at that time,
lesson learned.
It was 3 cases at one time. I was stressed out.
I bet.
but he got it. And, you know, I told him chickens come home to roost and it doesn't matter how long. And it was just like 3 cases back after back. And he's sitting there. And I remember planning my daughter's birthday and we're not even knowing if he'll be there to celebrate. And he got out probably like 2 days before. And we all came to LA for a trip because I'm like, this is the life that you want to live. We're going to go. We're going to see it. We're going to indulge in this so that you can stay focused, that where you are is not where you'll ultimately be. And less than a couple months, we were living inside of LA. He's living in a mansion inside of Calabasas because he decided to just finally put those things that weren't beneficial to him aside and focus on the things that were important, which was his music and his family.
So now how did you guys get discovered, get started, get your first hit, get your deal? Was he just putting music out there and was discovered on social media? How did you guys get started?
So he was a YouTube star. You know, these kids like nowadays, the
he was a YouTuber.
Media, yeah, so with his songs, he put his songs on YouTube. So initially when he had songs, it wasn't that much buzz circulating. So he was so adamant about getting his songs out. He'd go to his popular friends and put them on his popular friends page for cross marketing.
Very smart. Hear that? Y'all hear that? Exactly.
And he'd do things to, you know, for that viral effect and put him on the friends pages, and then they go back to YouTube. So he's getting all of these hits. He's hitting 1 million. He did a remix of a popular Chicago artist, Never Cared, and it went crazy. And then thereafter he did Finer Things, but he continued to put out quality content and his numbers would soar on YouTube, and he was a YouTube star. So then we had people calling us and they're like, hey, I have a deal for you. The deals were so low as $5,000, $10,000.
Heard that.
And then they started coming up to $100,000 and so on. And I'm like, if you could promise us this, my whole take on it was that we were solid. We were from a working class family. So at the end of the day, it's not like we had to escape this horrible situation. Yeah, so we were more than willing to wait it out to ensure that it was the best terms for him. And I'm really happy that we went with Sony because at the time, we knew that we didn't want to be shelved. We knew that we wanted to go someplace where he would be a priority. He have control over his music, his look, his tone, and all of those things. And we went to Sony. It was like almost a rebranding for them, a fresh look, and then a perfect situation for him where he'd be like the focal point of that time, at that time. So it was amazing.